Hey, welcome to All of Esports. Normally, this is Checkpoint XP's rapid fire show that talks about all of esports. However, today we're coming to you with a very special episode. We're having to break the format a little bit of the show here in order to talk about coronavirus. Obviously, you'll notice that Rick is not present. Weirdbeard is not joining us. He's currently under a self-quarantine. He came into contact with someone who is asymptomatic and has decided to self-quarantine. And so this show is going to be different for the next couple of weeks. And we of course, wish Rick well and a speedy recovery.
And hopefully not a recover at all.
Yeah, no recovery at all. Well, hopefully there is no recovery needed. But mostly we just want to wish him well and that his self-quarantine goes smoothly and quickly. Hopefully there will be nothing to worry about. But yeah, we're here to talk today about COVID-19 and just how this is impacting the world of esports. I think that's the best way to start here, talking about the coronavirus. And at least for a full week, it canceled everything. Most esports everywhere were completely shut down. I think the only esport that was being played last weekend was the RLCS continued to do stuff from home. They had already had their contingency plan in place. So there were a couple of matches that were played and casted remotely, which I thought they did actually a really great job with. I thought the production on it was really good, and it was a really entertaining watch.
Well, in all fairness, Rocket League is pretty used to doing remote cast. They're one of the few esports that does a lot of online play still.
Yes. Well, to that point, something that I'd like to point out, which I think is really unique and definitely a strength of the esports scene, is that esports were, first of all, I think one of the first scenes and industries to begin to respond to the concerns over COVID-19 way back in late January, early February. I think it was the Overwatch League and Riot for the LPL and the LCK, which were the first ones to sort of suspend play once these concerns started to rise up. And unlike the majority of other industries, and especially the traditional sports scene, we've started in some cases to at least work to get back on our feet in cases such as Rocket League being able to play online matches, given the inherent nature of our industry.
Absolutely. And that's what is kind of unique about esports, is that, even in the wake of something like this, esports is still something that is feasible to both play and enjoy watching, even in such extreme circumstances as we're seeing with COVID-19. So I kind of wanted to go through some of the specific leagues that, have worked through some of the issues and have kind of figured out how they're going to be addressing the COVID-19 situation, starting with League of Legends. I think arguably one of the largest and most popular esports out there. The LEC has announced that it will return March 20th, and LCS will be returning play March 21st. And those will be played online, casted online, casted remotely. So it seems like they're following a much similar model to Rocket League.
Yeah, I mean, and it's nothing new for that. Well, I should rephrase. It is something obviously new because usually they play at the LCS studios out in Burbank. And yeah, I'm fine that they've decided to go this route, right? Like, I'm glad that they're going to play versus just do nothing. I've always concerned when esports turn to playing online, because at the end of the day, there's a reason that every esport, when given the choice, chooses not to play online. Yeah, exactly. Like they always choose that, and it's because it is the fairest way to ensure, the best quality of product and the fairest quality of product. That said, these are obviously insane times, and I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there now. If you're out there and you use this as your opportunity to cheat in an esport, a pox on you and your horse.
The COVID-19 on you and your horse. I would say if there's anyone that could probably get away with it the most, it's probably League of Legends, in my opinion. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like League of Legends can get away with online play a little bit more just because it doesn't rely on exact precision, whereas like most first-person shooters might, where like you run into those issues where it's like, oh, I totally got you, but maybe not. I don't know. You could argue that with me if you want, but
well, it also doesn't have the cheating
thought.
problem. Like, I'm not going to say that there's no cheating in League of Legends, but I mean, when you compare it up against games like Overwatch or CS:GO or any shooter, really, PUBG, like there's cheating is such a minuscule problem in the scope of League of Legends.
So, one of the interesting things about League of Legends is that it takes less of a, production toll on those that have to broadcast it. A lot of the action can be followed through, bots and AI.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that, Riot is having a much easier time figuring out how to remotely broadcast their competitive matches compared to something like the OWL, which is much more production heavy, production intensive. And now that, California has ordered what essentially amounts to a shelter in place, but all businesses closed except for absolutely essential personnel, that has complicated OWL's plan that they had announced midweek to continue with matches, but online matches.
Yeah, the OWL, I think we're one of the first ones to confirm or announce that they would be going to the online format. And, Seoul Dynasty, who still has yet to play this season, this would have been their debut weekend. But yes, due to the everyone staying at home in California, they couldn't in good conscience bring their broadcast staff out to be able to do that. I mean, even to that point, Seoul, I believe, is now residing in California as well. So even all the teams who were supposed to play, they wouldn't have been able to get to where they needed to get the equipment that they needed. So once again, OWL having to postpone the matches.
And have a thought for the fans out there of Seoul or Gwangju or any of the Chinese or Korean teams who just, if you talk about some people who could use some good news or use something entertaining.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunate that matches were not able to proceed this weekend. We will monitor closely whether or not they will proceed in coming weeks. But this is obviously going to be a huge disruption for the season. And no word as of yet to when we can expect matches to resume. There is more esports that are happening. Counter-Strike Global Offensive has Flashpoint that's been running throughout the week. That features both Cloud9 and MIBR, so some nice heavy-hitting names. And ESL has moved all of its CSGO games online. Those start back up actually the day that we're recording this, March 20th. So there is competitive CSGO out there to watch. Dota 2 also, this is actually a really interesting one. The ESL 1 Los Angeles Major was canceled for obvious reasons.
It's supposed to be going on the whole month, basically.
Yeah, so the We Play charity stepped up to the plate and started the We Save charity play, which will feature a lot of the top Dota 2 talent and casters. The prize pool and all donations will be split between CEPI and the Global Giving Fund. That tournament, again, starts today as of recording this, March 20th, and it runs through the 23rd. Love to see charities and charitable organizations looking to do some good in the wake of COVID-19, getting out there and engaging with the gaming community. I think that is awesome.
I mean, at the end of the day, I would love to see more events being played like this one. It's a chance, like, esports comes from a very grassroots background, and I feel like that's the reason you're seeing esports handle this situation so much better than traditional sports is able to. Like going back to like charities stepping up and running tournaments, and the general audience around a game getting together to run tournaments. That's not really that much of a leap for us. We've been doing that for 20 years.
Absolutely. And, I would hazard to guess, if I had to, that you're going to probably start seeing traditional sports meaningfully interact with esports now that many of their seasons have been disrupted. So I think that that's going to be a really interesting point for engagement as well. We might see some pro-ams, but nothing that has solidified for sure right now, but something that we're definitely going to be keeping an eye here at All of Esports. And also, by the way, our LCS action continues if you're a Rocket League fan, with games being held at home this weekend, next weekend. They're going to be building toward, of course, their championship. So there is some option for viewing esports out there. There is some esports action that is happening. You can catch it in select locations, but those seem to be some of the biggest ones that are going to be coming back to life as of this weekend. And that's pretty exciting to see esports seizing an opportunity here where, as Callie, you had just mentioned, traditional sports really not able to be able to step in and fill that role.
Yeah, not to say that they're not, wanting to. It's just esports have the background for this. Like we're built around online play. We're built around the grassroots community. We're built around small groups of people being passionate about the game that they love. I mean, go back to your time on a college campus. There was always the group of kids playing whatever game they were passionate about.
Absolutely.
And keep in mind, like some traditional sports are actually continuing through a different, like through the game itself. So like for example, NBA 2K, like the Phoenix Suns are like they're simulating the entire rest of the season in 2K. So that's
I
like
believe there are also some racing. I don't know if it's NASCAR specifically, but there are also some racing sports that are doing something similar. What I hope comes out of this is obviously it makes a lot of sense that the NBA is looking to embrace NBA 2K. They're one of the traditional sports that the past few years have been trying to embrace that side of esports. So what I'm hoping comes out of this is maybe some of the organizations that have been slow to adapt or slow to give esports a chance, they don't really have many other options to turn to right now. And maybe, in this trying time, they decide to, all right, let's give this a try. And, depending on what the response might be, it could be one of those situations that really shows them, wow, we've really been dragging our heels. And even going forward, when things do get back on track, this is a market we should continue to look to embrace.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I believe FIFA is another one that was going to be picked up through some soccer teams or football, depending where you are. So yeah, it's honestly, that's the smartest thing, in my opinion, that they could do right now to give people some entertainment in some form of way. And it's really going to, I think this is going to be kind of a game changer for esports in general. Like COVID-19 is going to probably amplify this to the next level if it was already in that trajectory anyways.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's something to that. I also think that it's a moment for video games as well, with so many people spending time at home and figuring out, okay, what do I do with this bulk of free time? I think that you're going to have a lot of people rediscovering their love for video games as well. And that, of course, ties into the whole esports ecosystem. By the way, speaking of video games, we're trying to figure out the best game of all time. And guess what? We need your help. Head on over to checkpointxp.com and find our video game bracket challenge to vote. I know there's no March Madness, but we've got a very important bracket that we need your help deciding who the victor is. Vote now through March 30th, and you will register to win a Respawn gaming chair, not just for you, but for a friend as well. Check that out over at our website, checkpointxp.com. Still ahead on All of Esports, we're going to tell you, of course, what you can do to help mitigate the spread of the coronavirus. But, you've heard a lot of that already from other sources. But coming up next, we're going to talk about dealing with social distancing and why things can get a little weird. Stick around. That's ahead next on All of Esports.
Hey, what's up? It's James.
And Robbie.
Hey, and it's Weird Beard.
And we're bringing you a brand new radio show called Checkpoint XP.
You don't have to be an expert, even though I am, and we're here to give you everything you need to know about the world of video games.
Interviews from the biggest professionals and your everyday gamers. We've got you covered at Checkpoint XP.
Whether you're a professional player or somebody who hasn't played in a while, we have something for everybody.
Hang out with us at Checkpoint XP every single week on your radio.
Find out where we're playing in your hometown at our website, checkpointxp.com.
So if you're looking to have some fun and talk about video games,
we got the rundowns for things that matter to you.
Checkpoint XP, your home for esports and gaming.
You got it that time.
Yes.
Nailed it.
Welcome back to a special edition of All of Esports, also known as AOE. Checkpoint XP's normally rapid-fire show breaking down all of esports, but there actually hasn't been a ton. We could have tried to fill up this entire show with Rocket League discussion, but unfortunately, I don't think that that's what our audience would want. Instead, today, we're doing a special episode about COVID-19, coronavirus, the way that it's impacted not just esports, but our entire lives. Rick, my co-host, Weird Beard, not able to join us. He is in self-imposed quarantine, but instead joining me today, I've got a various smattering of talent from Checkpoint XP, including Callie Sloan, Robbie Landis, and Chad Callahan. Thank you guys for your time today. So I wanted to talk about social distancing because this is something that's happening right now that's really, really important, that I see a lot of people my age and especially younger not really taking very seriously, being a little bit cavalier about it, and it's concerning. And so, listen, I understand social distancing can be weird. I understand it can, for intensely social people who feel like they really need other people to be able to survive and thrive. I understand that this time is going to be specifically challenging for you guys. So I wanted to share some tips, and these tips came from the APA to, how social distancing is going to kind of play out, what you can expect, and different ways that we can try to help cope with it.
Are you telling me that John Bradshaw Layfield is going to be telling me how to cope with social distancing? The Acolyte Protection Agency is here?
No. That's kind of a deep attitude era WWE. I appreciate that, but no, Blackjack Bradshaw is not here. You do not have to worry. He will not give you an unsolicited chair shot to the head.
Okay.
So, all right, but the American Psychological Association, I think that's what the APA stands for.
Sarah would kill me if she had heard me make that joke.
I'll be sure to send her the clip.
Yeah. So real quick, as this continues to play out and we all kind of get deep into like week 3 of social distancing, even those that aren't intensely social people might start to feel some fear and anxiety and maybe some depression and boredom. I know that over the 5 days that we have been instituting social distancing, this has not been a problem for me. I am such an introvert that I'm just like, it's day 24. I guess I'm still at home. But I honestly though, I have felt this a little bit. I have felt a lot of the anxiety, especially with the news kind of pumping up the fear on a kind of regular basis. Like I sort of feel like a lot of this is driven on by the news, and of course it has to be a place where you go and you get information. But They also want as many eyeballs on him as possible. So, you know, they're going to try to find the most sensationalized story to bring to you. And so, you know, one of the tips that I thought was really good for coping with, you know, some of this social distancing is, you know, specifically limiting your news consumption and trusting, you know, very specific sources. You know, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the WHO, those kinds of organizations, you know, don't tend to make quick, sweeping, declarative, reactive statements. Those are usually thought out and brought on by a lot of very smart people who have you know, studied this issue. So, you know, if you find yourself really like worrying so much about COVID-19, that may be a strategy for trying to cope with it. Have you guys dealt with any fear or anxiety in your 5 days of social distancing?
I tend not to give into that type of stuff. I like to stay, you know, pretty level-headed about things. And I know that not just news sources, but people in general do tend to both overblow and underestimate, you know, what's happening out there. But since I like to look around a lot, you know, there are sometimes where, you know, I'll read stories or headlines off to my girlfriend, who a lot of times she'll be like, you need to just stop reading these to me because they're starting to make me feel like more panicked than what I should be. So, yeah. Well, not myself, for her, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think I've felt like very anxious or anything like that. What I am feeling is like, so this morning I went outside to like just to take the trash out, and it felt so good to just be outside. Like, yeah. I find myself like, because we finished up working, you know, 5 o'clock or so here, and then it's like, all right, and now I'm going to go into another part of my house and sit there for a little while. So, like, yeah. And then eventually I'll go to a third part of my house and go to sleep there.
Our apartment complex is located around, you know, artificially made, but just, you know, big sort of lakes and ponds. Yeah. And we've seen a lot more people than normal just out walking around the pond just to give themselves something to do outside.
Yeah, like the number of people I've seen walking their dog just around the block here is, I've never seen anything like it. It was just because, yeah, you have to find like an excuse to get out of the house, even if it's just for a minute.
Yeah.
And half of that is just like, open a window. It seems weird, but like you shut yourself in and like you just forget what the breeze feels like almost kind of sometimes, and opening windows help me a lot.
Yeah, suddenly realizing, because whenever we just like open the patio door, the cats are there immediately, like, oh my god, fresh air, and I'm like, I get it now.
Yeah, this is it. Breathe. But you know, as a tip, this isn't something everyone can do, but if you are capable, make sure you have a different place to work than where you play at home. Just having an office, and we've had to do this 3 times over in this house because myself, Sarah, and Robbie Fatstacks are all working from home right now. So she's got the back room as an office, I've got the studio as an office, and Fatstacks has the basement as an office. And then that's our workspace. And then when work time is over, living room is kind of the communal get-together area.
Right.
You have to like compartmentalize it that way, otherwise you'll go crazy.
You know, I've found myself doing that. I'll work. This is so bad. I do not recommend this for anyone. But I work in bed with a laptop and the fat tray, and then I go.
No.
And then I go play video games in the studio at my computer. It's probably the opposite way I should do that.
At least you're separating them. I guess it's that much.
It's my own small way to try to separate it, and it's like, okay, yes, my living room isn't getting used for anything, but maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should get up and work in the living room on a laptop, and not in bed.
Maybe.
But you know, Robbie, I thought you brought up a really good point. There is a fine line between staying well informed and then allowing, like, you know, overconsumption of media to sort of like work its way into your fear and anxiety. And I think that that's a really sort of important thing that that all of us have to kind of recognize and control the valve on. You know, are we obsessing too much? Is this moving into the realm of obsession? And, you know, when is there just too much information? When are you now overwhelming yourself.
Yeah, I would say also, like, all that overwhelming and doing that to yourself is going to make you feel more and more helpless. Like, you
Yes.
can't do anything in this situation. But I will throw out, because there's this really cool, interesting article I was reading about folding at home, and it's something you can do that might be able to help, like, scientists and researchers figure out how to handle COVID-19. And essentially, you just do the folding at home app on your computer, and you can donate your GPU and CPU power to simulations that could essentially fight off COVID-19. So it's really smart way to do something, and to physically be able to give something that will help to this cause.
Oh yeah,
because there's money's going right out the door right now, because a lot of people are kind of hitting financial strike, but you can donate at least a little bit of GPU and CPU time.
Didn't
Yeah,
the
very
PS3
cool.
used to have something like that?
Yes. Yep. That's I was just gonna mention
Same thing.
that, yeah.
And,
They
and beyond
absolutely
that, they do stuff so you can continue to use it beyond when this kind of passes over for like breast cancer and research and stuff like that. So if it's something that you want to continue with, you can as well. But specifically right now, it's probably a good way. And we have an article on checkpointxp.com that has all the specific channels. I don't remember what they're called, but the channels that you can pick to help towards that cause.
Yeah. So depression and boredom. I have hit boredom. I've definitely hit boredom. But this is going to be like, we're going to have to get used to this. This is going to be for a while. Like, I'm wondering when I hit peak boredom. Like, how weird is the weird gonna get when I hit peak boredom?
Well, I think what's fortunate for those of us who are also, very devoted gamers as well, is we are actually in what's about to be a very big release window for a lot of top tier games.
You got a good point.
But not everyone, I think, is into those same games, or in some cases during this self-isolation, they're not going to, some people aren't going to have the disposable income to spend on big purchases like that. And so, yes, things like boredom and feeling like you have nothing else left to do is going to be it seems like such a silly concept that you should watch out for boredom, but it's going to get real bad.
It is. I have to think that at some point I'm going to try reconstructing the entire Great Northern Hotel out of toothpicks.
Sure.
It's gonna get weird.
Well, we can also suggest, we just talked about it in AFK though, all the free games and super sales that are happening on PlayStation. So even if you can't play
right now, yes,
and go through your backlog of games that you probably have on Steam that you haven't played, or the games that are just like 99 cents that you're like, screw it, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's just a couple of tips for, depression and boredom. Depression hasn't really hit me any more than normal.
Well, got the meds for that right now.
Yeah, sure. Okay, we'll go with that. Anger, frustration, and irritability. That's just all the time.
That's just Nate.
Yeah, you're just describing me on a Tuesday. No, but I mean, like, I can absolutely see how after long periods of isolation, especially, for people who might be single, anger, frustration, and irritability rising up. And even for those that have been in, long-term relationships, you're in close quarters with somebody else. I lived with someone for like 6 years, and by the end of it, they could have dropped a fork and it would have been the most annoying thing in the world. It can happen. Like, you got to acknowledge it when it's happening and try to not put that kind of pressure on your partner or whoever you're sharing space with.
Well, and speaking again to sort of personal experience here, just within this past week, knowing that we're going to be quarantined and that we could possibly be looking at, types of shortages within, grocery stores and whatnot. We're also trying to be very careful in sort of limit and ration supplies that we have. So you also have to be careful about potentially compounding factors. It's one thing to get frustrated and irritable when you're self-isolating. If you're also trying to kind of cut down on your normal consumption habits, it could be something compounding the facts like, both hunger on top of the isolation. So it's definitely something that you need to constantly be aware and cognizant of.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to kind of like do a gut check. If you feel like, you're fighting with your partner all the time or your roommate all the time, sometimes it's good to be introspective and try to address what you're bringing to the table and how you can try to help. We'll talk about, some people who are more at risk to some of these external emotional factors in just a second. But, recognizing that people are going to be dealing with this situation differently and trying to, account for that and be patient with that is, I think, going to be a really important part of this process.
And I'll give you a quick suggestion. If you are feeling any of these, like especially like depression, anger, frustration, irritability, and not everyone's going to want to do it. And some people are going to roll their eyes, but there's two things. Breathing techniques are really good. Psychiatrists and such use those all the time and tell people to use those all the time for these things. And also they have free yoga on YouTube. I know you're gonna roll your eyes, but it truly helps. It's something
at this
change
point,
your pace.
So many things are being taken off the table. You have nothing to lose.
Right. Like
there are some great free meditation apps that are out there. Like I would absolutely agree with all of that. Also, I know that space may be limited for some people, but going into different rooms and cohabiting without having to literally share the same 10 feet of space with your partner is another thing that that can get real weird. So
also, for those of you,
normal. That's totally okay.
For those of you that unfortunately have children, please be extra patient with them. I cannot imagine being in a situation with children. I saw, I mean, as a kid or as a parent, I saw a thread. It was actually Jason Schreier from Kotaku on Twitter was like, y'all have no idea how lucky you are to not have, to be in this situation with children right now.
No, Jason, I know exactly how lucky I am.
Oh, yes.
Every reply was like, we're well aware, and that's why we don't have them.
Yeah, I made a very concerted focus to not have kids. When I started going on hormones, he said, now, I got to warn you, this will likely affect your fertility. And I said, yes, I'm aware.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank goodness.
And then, of course, the last thing I want to talk about is stigmatization. And this is something that I've seen a lot of, and it's not helped by the president going on television and calling it the China virus, but stigmatizing people who have been exposed or people who are infected is absolutely the wrong thing to do. This is, everyone is struggling with this. I understand people being afraid and wanting to take precaution, but you can't let that dribble over into hatred and all of the nasty things that come along with that. The stigmatization has to, like that you have to be cognizant of whether or not you're doing it casually in a joking sense, or whether it's something darker and much more nefarious. Please be conscious of that inside yourself.
And as this goes, the 9 degrees of separation is shrinking every day. So
Yes.
you're gonna know someone almost guaranteed at this point that is either contracted it or has come in contact with someone who has contracted it. So it's gonna be harder to find people that you don't know without it.
And everyone is deserving of dignity and deserving of care and equal care
And compassion.
And compassion. And I understand, hospitals are in some cases, in some areas, having to triage, which is a completely different thing from this. This is all of us. This is each individual person, and making sure, I live in a condo, a high rise, and I certainly don't hope that anyone here comes down with it, but one of the things that I'm very cautious of and concerned about is if somebody did, what happens on the other side of COVID-19. How are they treated? How are they welcomed back into the community? Would the community rally around them, or would they let them fend for themselves out of fear. I think that, this is going to test a lot of our moral fiber. And, it's important to remember that absolutely everybody is deserving of care and medical attention. So real quick, I just want to talk about who's the most at risk for, some of these more emotional and external factors. Of course, older adults that are particularly susceptible to COVID-19. They're going to be far more worried and far more anxious, far more likely to exhibit some of the things that we were talking about earlier. People with pre-existing mental health conditions, somebody who is already predisposition to things like anxiety and depression are far more likely to come into contact with those emotions, much earlier than, people who are not. And of course, healthcare workers who are dealing with the coronavirus outbreak. It's really important to be giving, these people the distance and the not physical distance, but emotional distance, the empathy, the caring, the understanding for what they're having to go through. They're having to shoulder so much of this burden that they really deserve a wide berth and a lot of support in this trying time. And then finally, of course, people with disabilities who require specialized diets, medical supplies, and assistance from caregivers. Their anxiety about their health are going to be exacerbated by all of the things that are being exacerbated by the COVID-19 outbreak. Things like food shortages, things like, having to be in close proximity to a caregiver, medical supplies, running out. These are of high concern to people who have pre-existing disabilities. It does somebody who is perfectly healthy and able-bodied no good to try to hoard medical supplies from the people who actually need it. This is absolutely a difficult thing to go through, but we're all in it together. And it's important to remember that, we have a responsibility to one another, and we have a responsibility, to our communities to, do the best for everyone that we can.
I'd also like to recommend and just remind everyone that, social distancing is a physical thing. So please constantly by phone or text message or Facebook, whatever you can, constantly check up on family members, friends more often than you would. In times like this, being able to call and just kind of talk things out is going to go a lot further than it may normally.
Absolutely. So a couple of other tips, as Robbie had just mentioned, staying virtually connected is easier than ever. We've got cell phones, we've got FaceTime, we've got Skype, Discord, Zoom, Google Hangouts. There are so many different ways to be able to connect virtually with the people who we love. Check up on people, make sure that they're doing okay, make sure that they're feeling okay, and, talk with them. Don't just be like, oh, hey, how's it going? And, bye, Uncle Jim, whatever. Call them and meaningfully have conversations. This is an opportunity to connect with family members and, to connect with them in a way that we normally wouldn't. A lot of times when we get together with family, it's chaotic and, you've got children screaming and people are preparing food. And this is a way to actually sit down and have real conversations with members of your family. And I encourage everyone to do that. Another tip for coping with this, create and follow a daily routine. Callie had kind of alluded to it earlier. Compartmentalizing your life, where you work and where you play are two separate spaces.
Yep.
That can be kind of difficult, especially for PC gamers. I understand that. But if it, something to help offset that or to mitigate that would be creating a routine, and still trying to adhere to it, even though our normal routine is very disrupted. Obviously, try to maintain a healthy lifestyle. I am so fortunate that, 3 weeks before all of this happened, my parents had gifted me an old Aerodyne workout bike. So I'm going to be working out on that for the foreseeable future. But small ways that you can try to stay healthy and not start to lead yourself down a path of a overly sedentary lifestyle is, I think, going to be the best, the best way to try to mitigate that, because no one wants to come out of this the other side of a pandemic, also now a couch potato,
Right.
So
well, 50 pounds heavier. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yay. And then finally, manage stress and try to stay positive. And I know that sounds like just a empty platitude, but I mean that. If you feel yourself getting stressed out, don't bottle it. Don't, just deal with it. Try to talk through it. The best thing that we have is communicating with the people around us. That's our safety net. That's our social safety net, is the people around us. And the only way that we get through this is if we're helping each other out and we're doing the most that we can for each other. And so, if you feel yourself starting to get overly stressed out, try to identify it, address it, and maybe take a few minutes to yourself. And staying positive is important, because social distancing is important. The reason this is so important is, we've all got family members, people that we know in our lives that either have a compromised immune system or have some sort of ongoing sickness or condition that would leave them vulnerable to COVID-19. This is not about whether you get sick and you can get to the other side of it. From everything that I've read and seen, this is a nasty, nasty virus that will kick your ass for a couple of days if you're a healthy person. And, most people have been able to get to the other side of it. But the concern that you should have is for the people that you love, that are in your life, that have some kind of either underlying condition. Maybe they don't even know about it. But they have some kind of underlying condition that would be exacerbated by coronavirus. You need to protect them. You need to, quarantine or social distance to ensure that it doesn't spread to you. You can be a carrier for this disease and be asymptomatic. That's totally possible. So, we all have to do our best to be as careful as humanly possible during this time of no one's ever seen anything like this. This is totally unlike anything that anyone has ever seen. And it's really important not to be cavalier about this whole thing.
Right. Well, I mean, you say no one has ever seen anything like this. You're absolutely right. And that also means we need to treat this in a way that has never been done before. Like, the standard, just, cough into your elbow, which is important. Absolutely do that. But there's more to it than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one of the, to give you an example of people who are at risk, when you list all these names or list all these types of people, one of the types of people are people who are asthmatic, which is like a good chunk of people, like a lot of people, at least minorly asthmatic, because when you get it, it's hard to breathe. So imagine being asthmatic or even slightly asthmatic, where you might not need the inhaler, and not being able to breathe. That it's going to impact you tremendously. So just think about just small things like that are the people you're trying to save.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is for the people around you. This is for the people, in not just your immediate area, but anyone that you come in contact with. I've seen people, now that I'm out of work, I guess I'm going to go
to the beach.
Yeah, I guess. Oh God, those people.
Sorry, I had to bring it up.
Or go visit grandma. No, now is not the time to go visit grandma. And I understand that, some of our older family members, this is a really big challenge. Some of our older family members, will need help getting around and just doing day-to-day things. And, a lot of times people want to jump in and help with the responsibility. And, this is not a time for a work chart, like who takes what responsibility. This is a time to think about the spread of a disease, how it happens, and containing that. And so if somebody does need help with, their day-to-day stuff, assign a single person
And they stay there.
that can, yes, again, this is all temporary. And this will go away at some point, but until it does, this is going to be extenuating circumstances for everyone, and it's on all of us to try to do what we can to limit the spread of coronavirus. All right, so coming up next, we're going to talk about the 5 things, the 5 things that you can do to help limit the spread of COVID-19. Stick around. That's ahead next on All of Esports.
About halfway through doing this, and I have my door closed, by the way, Tali just jumps up on my desk. Like she was hiding in here somewhere, and now she's like, all right, time to make myself known.
Aw. I saw her at one point. Is Tali the black one?
Yeah. She's been behaving herself, though, so it's
been
not that big a deal. I'm just like, where the fuck did you come from?
Alrighty. Welcome back to All of Esports and our coronavirus special. I'd like to say that normal programming will return next week, but we're not so sure. We don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but All of Esports will continue to bring some sort of content to you guys in the wake of COVID-19. Real quick, the World Health Organization has issued the Do the 5. It's 5 recommendations to help limit the spread of the virus. So I wanted to share those 5 things, and they should be very obvious. I'm sure you've heard them a million times by now, but I wanted to reiterate because it's really, really important. So I'll start with the first one. Hands. Wash them often. Wash them for 20 seconds. And really scrub them. Use hot water. Get under the nails.
As it turns out, there's a litany of songs you can sing while washing your hands that will get you there.
It is very true.
The memes are abundant.
My personal favorite is my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. But
and they're like,
it's better than yours. Listen, it doesn't matter what song you choose. The point is that even if you're not going out, you should wash your hands very often, and especially if you are going out or interacting with anyone. You live in a building like mine. It's a condo, so there is a lot of shared space. It is important to wash your hands. Please, for the love of God, just wash your hands.
Beyond COVID-19, just keep doing that, please.
In general, like, this has really made me be like, God, everyone just wash your hands 100% more often.
All right.
Just in general.
Number 2 is elbow. Cough into it. And I'm going to just go ahead and say it. I've seen it on a meme, but it bears repeating. General Grievous is a robot man on a ship full of robot men, and he coughs into his elbow. You can do it too.
Yeah.
Just do the dab is essentially all you're doing.
And again, this is important because if you cough into your hands, you can then shake hands with someone and then continue to spread not just COVID-19, but all kinds of germs.
All the germs.
Yeah, nobody shakes elbows, okay?
This is something that they teach in kindergarten.
Although people have been doing exterior elbow bumps, so
we have been seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So just maybe don't go inside don't do inside elbow bumps.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just a weird bodily motion.
I guess you can't do a hoedown anymore if you do that, though. Come on now.
I listen.
I don't know who's doing that.
I think we're all gonna be fine.
I don't know. The South might be screwed. I don't know. I guess the next one would be face. Don't touch it. And as a gay man, it's almost impossible for me not to touch my face, but I've been doing it pretty well. All right.
Yeah, this is an important one. Again, it limits the spread of disease. It's tough. I have a beard. I get it.
Yeah, this is also something that you do subconsciously. Like, even just right now, as you all said, don't touch your face. I'm like, but there are suddenly 3 places that itch on my face.
Every time.
Right now.
Every time.
It's without fail. And I always get a lot of pushback from people because, oh, your beard is so scraggly. I don't have a choice. I'm legally not allowed to touch my face anymore.
Okay, you
so
know
I
what?
can't shave my beard.
No. I think if shaving your beard is the price to having a cleaner, healthier life, you wash your hands, you shave your beard, you wash your hands again.
Yeah, there you go. Solutions.
Okay.
All right. I don't know about this one. Feet. Stop licking each other's feet. That seems specific. What?
Yeah, stop that. Yeah.
What's the WHO got going on? No, feet. Stay more than 6 feet apart from each other. Again, it's just real basic. We have, the aura of germs around us. Don't commingle those right now. We do not need this to evolve into the T virus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh, yeah.
And listen, I've been to Walgreens, I've been to Kroger. That some places are even taping in 6-foot increments near where the line should be. So, like, watch out for that. Like, just be conscious of it. Stay apart from people. You don't need to line up in a very close proximity to the person ahead of you. Like, come on, we all know how lines work here.
Yeah, spatial awareness is very important, especially right now.
Yes. And our final one is if you feel sick, stay home and contact a doctor. Don't go to a hospital immediately. I have seen people who, have panicked and immediately gone to the hospital. Don't do that. There's not just people who are sick with COVID-19 that, need the hospital resources. There are other people. There are pregnant people. There are people with, ongoing long-term conditions that need the resources of the hospital, not just COVID-19 patients. So if you feel yourself coming down with something, doesn't matter if it meets the criteria for COVID-19 or not, stay home, call a doctor, and follow their advice. That, I know it's kind of weird to be told, if you feel sick, don't go to the hospital. But this is something that's really important because if these hospitals get overwhelmed, then there's really going to be panic. And that's some stuff that I get really concerned about. So, I think that those 5 things, those 5 recommendations from the World Health Organization are very good recommendations for this time at the moment. Obviously the situation is really fluid and could change. It has been changing rapidly as it has been progressing, and we're going to continue to monitor it, and not just the way that it impacts esports, but the way that it continues to impact, gamers across the spectrum. And of course, we want to hear from you. Reach out to us on social media. That's Checkpoint XP on Facebook and Twitter, Checkpoint_XP on Instagram. Become a part of our community. Join our Discord. Check us out on YouTube. Leave us a YouTube comment. We'll try to respond to you. And honestly, we are all in this together. It's really important to all band together and to try to keep everyone safe and healthy during this really, really trying time. And I promise you guys, if we do that, we're going to be able to get out the other side just fine. So I really want to thank my special guests here today, Chad Callahan, Callie Sloan, and Robbie Landis. You guys have been much better than Weirdbeard. I have
I'll make sure to let him know.
Sure, he'll be thrilled to hear that.
I'm just kidding. And of course, to Weirdbeard, we of course send our love and our best wishes, and hopefully everything with his situation ends up turning out just fine. All of Checkpoint XP is here to continue producing content for you to enjoy while this COVID-19 situation continues to play out. So make sure you go over to checkpointxp.com. Check out the variety of content that we offer, from The Other Identity to our nationally syndicated radio show to Checkpoint XP on campus.
And our contest that's going on right now where you can win a chair.
That's
two chairs.
Absolutely
Two
right.
chairs.
we have a bracket contest that's going down right now. It's called our Video Game Bracket Challenge. Head on over to checkpointxp.com. Vote now through March 30th to get you registered to win a Respawn gaming chair for not just you, but for a friend as well. There's so much to do over at the Checkpoint XP website. Check it out, checkpointxp.com. That's going to do it for All of Esports. We'll catch you next time.